Now let's all give a bankrupt hello to your butt-ugly host. His hairline is disappearing faster than The Rock's muscle mass. It's beer-battered Barrahandro.
We are Bankrupt Barry. We carry the shame.
Yeah. Shut up. Okay, dirtbags. For today's movie, we're turning back the sadness clock, all the way back to 1990, a time when, for many of us, life still felt like it was charged with potential and contained within it infinite possibilities.
Barry, the only time your life involved charges was last year when you got butt-stinking drunk on malt liquor in the Buc-ee's parking lot.
Yeah, and then that cop with the webbed fingers popped you for exposing yourself in front of that church group.
And then you told that other cop with the lazy eye to lick your...
Piss off. I was there. I know what I said. So, this time we're gonna break our crazy necks by deep diving into John Patrick Shanley's cult classic, Joe Versus the Volcano, starring Big Meg Ryan and Tommy Tom Hanks.
You forgot Pierce Brosnan, Barry.
That's an entirely different volcano movie. You eucalyptus-reeking bag of piss.
Barry, straighten out that big-ass gut and tell him about the cast.
Okay, well, we already mentioned Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. Asswipe. Of course, Tom Hanks plays Average Joe, a poor, tired soul with a shitty office gig.
And since he's goddamn Tom Hanks, he absolutely nails the role.
Yeah, there's really not much more to be said. I mean, he's Tom Hanks. He can do it all.
Well, I could imagine Johnny Depp playing a ball-slappingly fantastic version of Joe.
What if it was Tim Robbins? Or Denzel?
Yeah. And what if old Barry got to bang Marissa Tomei in a field of gillyflowers? You speculative asswipes. But one of the wacky things about this movie is that Meg Ryan plays like 15 different characters.
Barry, she plays 3 roles. Dee Dee, Angelica, and Patricia. I mean, that's hardly close to...
Plus, we got Dan Hedaya in a truly brilliant performance as Mr. Waturi, Joe's ghoulish, spiritually divested boss.
Well, I love the hell out of Lloyd Bridges as Graynamore.
Lloyd Bridges was a goddamn genius.
Crab? I didn't see any crab.
Don't tell me there were 2 crabs. They work in pairs.
Yeah. And Robert Stack plays the host of Unsolved Mysteries.
You mean he plays Joe's doctor, you goddamn Methuselah?
Then we got Ossie Davis, who plays Marshall. Now, you probably remember this guy from Grumpy Old Men and Bubba Hotep.
They got Ossie Davis playing the token black limo driver? Oh, wow, what a treat.
Well, we got Abe Vigoda as chief of the Waponis. He was in that movie about that damned narcissistic Italian family.
What? He was in Rocky?
Well, don't forget Nathan Lane as Ball.
Nathan Lane wasn't in Godfather, dumbass.
You don't know that, Marco. Just because you're handsome doesn't mean you get to be the mayor of movies, asshole.
Hey, shut up, dumbasses.
Barry, pop a beta blocker and tell him about production before you have another heart attack.
Okay, so you may have noticed that this is a strange damn movie. It was written and directed by John Patrick Shanley, who won a goddamn Academy Award for writing a screenplay for 1987's Moonstruck. And throughout the film, you can find evidence of Shanley's love of stagecraft. For instance, check out the quirky colors in the apartment interiors in this city scene.
Well, the highly stylized dystopian look of Joe's workplace is goddamn brilliant, but I'm sure Barry's gonna run his fat mouth about that later on.
Meanwhile, this scenic shot where Joe and Dee Dee are on the Staten Island ferry was pulled off with a homemade gimbal and a fake backdrop. See, Shanley just loves to play with them colored gels, and the water is just a layer of plastic garbage bags.
Plus, we got this stylized moonshot. That's kind of a John Patrick Shanley staple.
Yeah, and as for the shots of Waponi Woo, those were done mostly around Oahu.
But in case you didn't notice it in the credits, this movie was backed by Amblin, which included some of the heaviest cats on the block. Yeah, we're talking Stevie Spielberg, a pre-Star Wars sequel's Kathleen Kennedy, and Frank Marshall, who directed that goddamn Congo movie that we reviewed a while back.
Yeah, anyway, Joe Versus the Volcano was, at best, a modest success at the box office, and its critical reception was pretty mixed. Okay, Barry, stop fantasizing about Meg Ryan's thighs and tell him about the story, you goggle-eyed, cheese-eating motherfucker.
Okay, listen up, you illiterate, dick-flicking peasants. In order to do this movie justice, we first gotta unpack that wonderful intro song, 16 Tons, which was originally written and performed by Merle Travis back in 1946. Now, the movie uses a more modern version performed by that British blues guy, Eric Burdon.
Oh, House of the Horny Sun!
It's rising sun, Bovon. Go take your goddamn alpha brain tab.
There is a house in New Orleans.
I hope you all get bladder cancer, shit asses. Okay, so the Merle Travis 16 Tons number actually carries quite a lot of historical significance. Most of you probably know the song's recurring line about the narrator owing his soul to the company store. Well, throughout the early 20th century and beyond, these debt cycles were a reality for countless coal miners. Rather than paying their workers in cash, many mining operations paid their lower-tier workers in scripts, which could only be redeemed at the company store, which tended to fluff up its prices.
Yeah, with the predictably sadistic fucking result that a lot of these miners ended up more like indentured servants than actual earners.
You know, it kind of reminds me of how the record labels back in the 80s and 90s would set up those really predatory contracts for inexperienced bands. You know, the band would end up selling like 5 million records, yet they'd be in massive debt with the label.
Oh yes, asswipe, it's just like that. I'm sure Warner Bros. Was making Johnny Resnick breathe coal dust for 16 hours a day.
Well, Barry, I'm just trying to find a more contemporary example of what you're
Yeah, well, that's no reason to reference the goddamn Goo Goo Dolls. Not on my channel. Just say Amazon.com, where the workers are forced to piss into empty Prime bottles and then ship them out to little shit-ass kids all over the nation. Or you could reference the UFC, where the average fighter gets paid like $5 grand in a stack of Jersey Mike's coupons to receive instant onset CTE before an audience of toothless, syphilitic dump truck drivers, payday loan certifiers, and apprentice meat trimmers from Costco.
Well, Barry, you know, the first line of that 16-ton song speculates on the rather common cross-cultural creation myth that describes humans being formed from mud.
Well, bless my unwashed balls. You managed to make a relevant point there, Captain Senescence. It's true that the film opens by linking Joe to the Earth's lowly muck. It's as if the movie is asking whether Joe will be forever cursed to wiggle out a lowly existence among the beetles and worms.
Like you, Barry.
Yes, like me, shit-ass. Or if Joe might sublimate to a higher, more spiritual state of existence. So anyway, Joe and his dumbass co-workers shamble to work at American Panoscope. They're like a bunch of mopey zombies who are suffering from chronic hemorrhoids or whatever.
Yeah, and Barry's lame little hemorrhoids line is actually appropriate, because apparently American Panoscope designs probes that get rammed up proud, God-fearing American asses.
They even make the lube that the doc smears on before
He starts snapping the Polaroids. Yes, Marco, we've all been to the doctor's office, for Christ's sake.
Well, there's also the jagged lightning symbol, which shows up.
Yeah, it shows up all throughout the movie. What's it supposed to mean, Barry?
What's it mean, Barry? Is it a hate sign like the sun in red?
Peel the goddamn cataracts from your eyes, Bovon. We'll talk about the lightning thing later on. First, we need to give praise to this brilliantly circular dialogue loop performed by Joe's boss, Mr. Waturi.
I'm not arguing that with you. I'm not arguing that with you. I'm not arguing that with you.
I hate it when you're right, Barry. But yeah, this whole sequence is fucking gold. Even the way Joe tries in vain to break up those insoluble lumps of artificial coffee creamer. That sweet bowl brazen Christ, that's just great stuff.
Well, speaking of balls, how about the fact that while Waturi is arguing, he's squeezing away at a pair of artificial beanie balloons?
All the better to emphasize the fact that this heinous company is wringing every last drop of vital human goodness from its poor, shop-worn employees. In fact, Joe's only mechanism of escape is this ugly-ass lamp that he bought off of Craigslist. In fact, if you look closely, you'll see that the movie's whole plot is spelled out imagistically. But we don't want to spoil the fun just yet. Yeah, so of course Waturi won't let Joe keep his goddamn lamp. And we find out Joe's been having nagging health issues ever since he left the fire department.
I don't feel good.
Yeah, it's one of those mystery illnesses like Havana syndrome or gonorrhea. So Joe visits Robert Stack inside his very conventional-looking doctor's office. And it turns out that Joe's pretty well throat fucked.
Yeah, he got that brain cloud that's been going around.
Brain cloud? There's a black fog of tissue running right down the center of your brain.
That's right. Old Sloppy Joe's been marked for deletion by the great doer who goes by many names.
Bangarang!
So Joe the Joe heads back to work, but mostly just to humiliate Mr. Waturi. He steals his lunch money, makes him swallow the fake testes, and does a bunch of other mean shit. Yeah, but he's also got to do his civic duty in terms of beating us over the goddamn head with the movie's literary connections.
Robinson Crusoe, Romeo and Juliet, the Odyssey.
Well, Barry, you forgot about the copy of Castaway that's on Joe's desk.
Wilson!
Wilson! Wilson!
Well, this scene is also very telling for other reasons. I find it interesting how Waturi is revealed to be utterly powerless. In fact, he's deeply afraid of Joe.
I've always suspected that Waturi hates his job even more than Joe does.
Bro, imagine that dude's home life. I bet his apartment sucks worse than Joe's. Dried up rat turds on the carpet, TV dinner trays piled up on the floor, all crusted over, Waturi wearing a wife beater, dozing off to reruns of Silver Spoons or whatever. I mean, basically he'd be Barry. You know, if Barry had a job.
Shut up. So, now that he knows he's headed for that big anal probe in the sky, Joe finally has enough sack to ask out Meg Ryan's Dee Dee. Only, unlike Bovan, it turns out Dee Dee's too proud to engage in necrophilia. And that means Joe's gotta settle for hanging out with Mr. Grainamore, played by the incomparable Lloyd Bridges.
Yeah, well, Joe's apartment is marked by that same lightning symbol.
Yeah, we'll get to that later. Now listen, Grainamore is a loopy old Bovonic-type geezer who owns some kind of superconductor product that he barely even understands.
And he needs a mineral that can only be found on an obscure South Pacific island.
Somehow, Grainamore knows that Joe's life is forfeit, and he's got a hilarious proposition for Joe that's already been foreshadowed.
I want to hire you to jump into a volcano.
You know, I'm not sure if any other actor could have pulled off that delivery.
Yes, it's true. And just watch how Grainamore hugs Joe from behind.
Well, it's also great how nonchalant and anticlimactic Joe's ultimate response is.
All right, I'll do it.
Yeah, then we get a shopping montage where Grainamore lets Joe use a bunch of his credit cards for new clothes and big-ass luggage and a PlayStation 5 or whatever.
To be honest, most of this shopping act isn't all that crucial. Joe befriends a black limo driver, but this guy just ends up disappearing from the story entirely.
But over in L.A., Joe meets the second iteration of Meg Ryan, Grainamore's daughter, Angelica, who's way too obsessed with Roy Lichtenstein.
Yeah, this old girl's trying to work up the nerve to leave L.A. and stop living off Daddy's allowance.
Sounds like a pretty good problem to have. My daddy used to make me swallow cigarette butts to amuse his drunk-ass friends. 25 cents per butt, or 5 for $1.
It's worth noting that Dirty Joe has an opportunity to bang Angelica. But apparently he'd rather go back to his hotel and play God of War.
Yeah, and the next day we meet the third and final member of the Meg Ryan triad. It's old Patricia, another Graynamore daughter, but this one's blonde, so she's hot. Yeah, so Patricia ushers Great Joe toward this movie's more pelagic scenes, and the old girl's got but one question on her mind.
Did you sleep with my sister?
There's a buttload of dank, rich person yacht humor. But more importantly, Joe and Patricia start thinking about making that boat rock.
Yeah, but of course the movie has to cook up a stupid-ass storm to interrupt them. And that makes the boat rock in a manner that's not at all conducive to open water banging.
Yo, these motherfuckers are cursed harder than Colleen Ballinger's Patreon.
Whoa, back up. Wasn't that the Totenkopf?
It's called a Leningrad.
God damn it, we're gonna let Al handle the lightning symbol. Now shut up. Yeah, so thanks to the storm, Patricia gets a dose of the old CTE and forgets how to do long division for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, but Joe's big-ass fucking luggage saves the day.
And Joe's not a complete creep, so he doesn't try to pull any Cosby stuff on Trish.
Yeah, well, in a selfless gesture, Joe also gives all the Fiji water to Patricia. But there's also a thematically loaded moment where Joe witnesses an oceanic moonrise, and he expresses gratitude for his miserable, asinine, worthless fucking life.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's kind of reminiscent of that moment from the Rime of the Ancient Mariner where the mariner finally learns to accept the sanctity of all life forms.
He prayeth best who loveth best all things, both great and small.
Ah, shut up, goddamn library snobs. See, I'd say it's a lot more like the Cabin Boy movie, when Chris Elliott's character bangs the giant lady with extra arms, and he finally learns how to give good face, like a real man.
Yeah, well, Barry, I'm pretty sure the Manosphere would disagree, bro.
Now, you can piss on off to the moon, Fly. They're all a bunch of self-hating...
And Barry!
Time to get paid!
Okay, lowlifes. This one's for all the unfuckable man-children in our audience. Remember those insufferable, noisy arcades you used to frequent back when you were an ugly, pimply little kid? You remember? It always smelled like feet. And the guy behind the counter looked like he wanted to ram his finger right up your...
No, Bovon, we already told you, bro. You gotta read from the script. No more goddamn freestyling.
Well, thanks to our good friends at Poorhaus, we're up to our areolas in debt. That's because they've helped us bring to life our most ambitious dream to date. It's Barry's Arcade.
There, come spend some goddamn money, you shit asses. They said they're gonna take my adrenal glands.
That's right, friends. We'd like to profit off of your stupid nostalgia for the 80s and 90s. We've got all of the greatest chart toppers, folks, including one of those fortune-telling machines like the one from that other Tom Hanks movie.
Yeah, except ours is a little more offensive.
Hey, big time! I want to smell that finger!
Man, y'all chuds are pathetic. When we gonna get Afterburner too, bitches?
Well, see, those name brand games are subject to copyright and licensing fees and whatnot. Listen here, gang. Why spend your hard-earned on those snobby AAA titles when you can play unique, bespoke game designs concocted exclusively for Poorhaus? Like, eat it extra terrifical?
But, bro, who the fuck wants to play that shit, Bovon?
Or perhaps you'd care to indulge in the pugilistic arts with Uncle Bovon's very own arcade title, Forbidden Fist.
Yeah, come play our stupid games, asswipes. We're right off I-90, across from all the pawn shops.
Like I said, we've got all the hottest, saltiest releases. At some point, you probably played that stupid whack-a-mole game, right? Well, we got something much better.
Asswipe! Shit ass!
Yeah, and if you can whack 9 berries in a row, them little heads will spray natty light from their mouths.
Now, bear in mind we gotta recoup our losses, folks. But as long as you agree to receive a somewhat painless, semi-permanent tattoo of our company logo, well, I'll mark down your first game to a lean $15.
Hard times, folks. Hard times. But, hey, we've even got full-size versions of those handheld LCD games that everyone hated like 30 years ago.
Hey, Barry, when we gonna get that Terminator game?
What about Afterburner 2?
Shut up, shit-asses. Look, we can only afford the slop. Now come spend some rubles, you cheap pricks. It's Barry's Arcade, over there next to the airport.
The toilet's backed up, so we got a slop bucket set up in the storage closet.
Game on.
Anyway, Patricia finally wakes her sweet ass up so we can all experience the third act of this unruly goat banger of a motion picture, where we finally make it to the island of Waponi Woo.
Well, isn't this part of the movie inspired by that goofy cartoon? Hello, Aloha?
That cartoon came out in 1952, Bovon. I would have assumed you were already too old for cartoons, but thanks for your goddamn contribution.
Well, I actually kind of like the movie's explanation of the Waponies. At one point, Patricia points out that the Waponi people are a kind of mishmash of Polynesians, Jews, and Druids who got swept off course and shipwrecked on the island like 1,800 years ago.
Yeah, that's right. We got a little bit of everything, and if you listen carefully, their welcome song plays to the tune of Hava Nagila.
I love Abe Vigoda as the chief.
Hey, Barry, what's the deal with all the Waponis drinking orange soda?
I don't know. It's orange soda. What's not to like?
Yeah, but they're all long fucking way from Costco, Barry. How the hell did they restock them things?
And the same way Bovon restocks his rectal ointment. It's called Amazon Prime, Fly. Goddamn intervention!
I think it's supposed to be implied that a whole crate of them things washed up on Waponi Woo. Plus, the brand name is Jump, which has some pretty clear thematic implications.
Yeah, so there's really not that much for us to say about the Waponi Woo segment of the film. Joe agrees to hurl himself into the volcano in unceremonious fashion.
Is there any ceremony or anything?
No, you just jump in.
Honest Abe Vigoda fucking rocks.
Patricia tries to surprise us by confessing her love for Great Joe. But, let's face it, we already do this.
I love you. I've fallen in love with you.
Yeah, well, they do get married by the chief.
Yeah, and just like virtually all married couples, Joe and Trish seem to have consigned themselves to a miserable, fiery doom. But for whatever reason, the movie takes pity on them, and the Big Woo spits them back out even more rapidly than Shania spat out my hot, silky...
Enough! I think it's obvious that the Big Woo spares their lives because of true love.
Nah, it's because Great Joe expressed gratitude for his stupid, asinine life when he dropped acid and watched the moon rise.
Nah, man. I think it's because that luggage salesman put a blessing on Joe.
May you live to be 1,000 years old, sir.
Yeah, well, I think you're all a bunch of asswipes.
Yeah, well, this bit here at the end starts to get a little too cartoony, even for me. The issue is that whatever has caused the Big Woo to spare Joe and Patricia, it feels contrived. You know, the characters didn't really have to make any difficult choices or take any difficult actions. They never even had to alter course. Joe has been planning to jump this whole time. The only difference is now he's married to Patricia.
Which is also pretty predictable.
Deus ex ignivimus.
Hey, shut up. So, Trish and Joe are adrift once again, and they've got Joe's luggage to keep them afloat. Oh, and Trish informs Joe that he's a gullible asshole, and there's no such thing as a goddamn brain cloud.
What is a brain cloud?
Well, it's...
Yeah, that was just something Daddy Grainamore and the doctor cooked up in order to convince Dirty Joe to leap into the Big Woo.
Well, Barry, I mean, what about that Craigslist doctor who diagnosed you with a gut cloud?
That's a real condition, jackass. And that's why old Barry pays Dr. Cockwinner $40 a month to leach the toxins directly out of my ass cheeks.
Well, what happens to the Waponis?
I guess they fucking drowned.
Okay, smartasses, let's check in with Al. See if he's gonna grace us with another boring-ass dissertation.
Hello, Barry. You look about as fresh as a hammered dog turd.
Woo! Get him, Al.
Listen up, Philistines. In ancient South American and Polynesian lore, volcanoes were not merely geological landmarks, but revered sites for the staging of cosmological dramas. Places where the human and the divine intersected, where the earth's fiery heart could be placated by symbolic offerings of life. Rarely are these myths historically accurate. Rather, they are metaphors writ large. Cultural poetry about confronting the unknown and yielding one's narrow ego to a more expansive field of being. Joe's journey mirrors this archetype of volcanic sacrifice. He works at the bloodless, faceless American Panoscope Company, the architecture of which contains a lightning bolt logo that recurs like a secret syllable in a Zen koan. Among other symbols, I mean. Our lovely bolt can also be seen fracturing the wall of Joe's dreadful apartment, and it also appears in the form of the lightning bolt that capsizes the Tweedledee. And yet again, as the Waponis are winding their way up the Big Woo to witness Joe's big, fiery finale. The symbol is not a brand, but a gesture. Perhaps it's meant to signify a winding road, or perhaps a lightning bolt. A lightning bolt, after all, is no static structure but a jagged, meandering course, not unlike Joe's own crooked path toward awakening.
Been a long time coming here to meet you. A long time. A crooked road.
Each iteration of this symbol heralds a rupture in the narrative, a moment when Joe is called to release his fear of life and death, to let the bolt of awareness strike him out of complacency. Seen through this lens, the volcano is less of a threat than a threshold. Joe and Patricia's initial leap is symbolic, a ritualistic emptying out of their hearts into the common heart of existence. Their eventual emergence, alive, strangely joyous, unbowed by meaninglessness, serves to spotlight the notion that life's absurdity isn't a void to fear, but a mystery that gratifies. The recurring symbol then becomes an indicator of fulfillment and illumination, a successful traversal from a rote, joyless, fluorescent-lit life to a realization of self that reaches oceanic proportions. In this way, Joe Versus the Volcano becomes not just a comedy, but a mythopoetic paean to the human capacity to turn sacrifice, real or metaphorical, into a heightened state of awareness. In order to fully realize themselves, Joe and Patricia must first attempt to give themselves away in the fullest and most ultimate sense. Okay, that's enough. Back to Bunkhouse Barry, the Pele of poverty.
Yeah, why don't you go tell it to the space dust, Al? You highfalutin, medullated, cloud-tickling asswipe. Okay, gang. So I think it's safe to say that we can all relate to Ugly Kid Joe's experiences. At least, maybe for the first 30-something minutes of the film. Poor Joe hates his job. His co-workers all suck ass. And the one attractive woman in his life won't bang him because he's mere weeks from death.
Well, Barry, if it's any consolation, I feel pretty sure the volcano would spit your ugly ass out, too.
Yeah, but ain't no way you get to bang Meg Ryan. Even if you were the only human piece of ass on Waponi Woo.
Yeah, you already used that goddamn insult when we covered inner space.
Barry, have you and your big gelatinous gut ever considered the possibility that maybe if you lived more like Joe, more happiness would come your way?
So you really think old Barry might have a chance at love?
I got the giggles.
Well, we all know the truth, folks. At the end of the film, Joe and Trish are piling up a lot of cloud talk, saying they're gonna steer away from the things of man, and all they need is their stupid luggage along with plenty of moonlight or whatever. But eventually, they'll grow tired of one another. Eventually, they'll get tired of living off seaweed and sand crabs, and their hatred of one another will be rivaled only by their desperate yearning for the so-called things of man. Old Trish will get to the point where she'd set fire to a bus full of baby kangaroos just to lick the bottom of a Starbucks trash can. Maybe get to relish just one drop of that mass-produced slop, which is scorched to hell, by the way.
Ah, that is true, Barry. No wonder they're closing so many stores.
Point is, the first act of this movie transcends the typical trappings of a Hollywood fairy tale. The office scenes are downright brilliant, but in old Barry's opinion, the rest of the film fails to match these early ambitions. That whole happily ever after shtick feels especially tacked on because the opening scenes were so unique and inspired.
Well, Barry, you haven't really covered all the film's references to losing one's soul.
I'm losing my soul.
I'm soul sick.
It is my soul.
Or the fact that every time Joe surpasses an important spiritual milestone, he throws away a hat.
Yeah. Tell it to that brainy little asswipe who used to work for Wisecrack. Anyway, I guess that's about all we got for now, folks. Tune in next time. We're gonna live stream all 43 hours worth of insufferable big band crooner cringe barbershop music from that goddamn Fallout show. And then we're gonna get pants pissing drunk on brake fluid and talk about how much we love Mike Judge.
Well, Barry, don't you want us to drop you down the maw of a raging volcano? Come on, bro. Doesn't that sound better than dying on the toilet with that Temu video game system of yours?
You'll jump, Barry. You'll jump and you'll see. That's life.
I'm not doing it.
You got a choice, Barry. Either you dive into that shit-stinking volcano, or we finally gonna review Master of Disguise.
Ah, sweet space docking Christ.
We're gonna listen to the full DVD commentary, too.
I never should have quit my job at the zoo. Oh, God. Stop it. Please kill me. Maybe I'm overreacting. I'm sure Master of Disguise can't be that bad. Yes, Christ, what the shit is this?
Bankrupt Barry! Stop stinking up my beautiful prime bottles and get your pimply ass back on the line!
Well, I don't work here, and you're not the boss of me.
Yes, I am! I am the boss of you, you little pillow biter!
Yeah, but I came through the mouth of a volcano.
Well, who do you think owns the volcano, asshole?
Yeah, sweet chowder-licking Christ. Old Barry's landed in hell again.
Yeah, I own that too. Now get back to work.
Well, hold on. I think I may have shit my pants.
Well, that counts as a bathroom break. And it's coming out of your very low wages. You worthless, cellulite-laden, butter-basted bag of puke.
Well, maybe I'll start a union.
You don't have a chance in hell.
Oh, yeah? Well, you don't own my soul, asswipe.
Piggly Wiggly, why would I want your soul? I already own your ass.
I'm gonna tell everybody to boycott this goddamn store.
No. I hate it when you guys do that.
I will not go quietly.
Yeah, well, I guess you won't go thinly either. But you're gonna die here, Barry. You're gonna die here. I promise you that.
It's your fault I'm fat. There's a very clear correlation between poverty and obesity in this country.
Shut up. God, you're annoying.
Piss off.
Perhaps you have seen this place in a dream, Barry. That you would die here.
Dime store keats, pretty birds, pretty mouths.
Human beings were not meant to sit in little cubicles, staring at computer screens all day, filling out useless forms and listening to 8 different bosses drone on about mission statements.
If the left one don't